Welcome to the BrainTap Podcast, here to help you relax, reboot, and strengthen your overworked brain. Your host, Dr. Patrick Porter, is the developer of the BrainTap Pro mobile app, designed to help you sleep better, lose weight, de-stress, or kick a bad habit, all while increasing energy, focus, peak performance, and more. Take the free BrainTap Pro Challenge. Simply register at braintap.pro. That's braintap.pro. On the BrainTap Podcast, Dr. Porter brings together a team of experts to share up-to-the-minute news in neuroscience, brain training technology, along with how mindfulness and meditation can be used to improve your life in ways you never imagined possible. And now, here's your host, Dr. Patrick Porter.
Hello, this is Dr. Patrick Porter, and welcome back to BrainTap Radio. I'm very pleased to have a special guest today that's going to tell us a little bit about our environment and what some of you might not know what's happening out there as far as what the environment's doing for you or against you. So, Dr. Janet Newman, I want to welcome you to the show, and please tell us a little bit about yourself and what got you into such a network or such a field of study that you're talking about chemicals in our environment.
Hi, Dr. Porter. It's great to be on your broadcast here, and I'm so glad that you asked me to be on and share some of the things that I've been studying. A little bit about myself. I'm a mom, and I'm obviously very concerned about my kids' health and my family's health. And about 8 years ago, I was having a whole bunch of disparate kind of symptoms, and they didn't really kind of come together as something obvious for me as having a common link, but they were things like I had a slight thyroid imbalance, I had some gastrointestinal issues, my mother was dying of cancer at the time, my husband was just diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder, a type of arthritis. And so all of these things were going on. I was under an enormous amount of stress, but I have a Ph.D. in psychology. And so I really like to dig into research when I am new to something. And when I started looking at all the different ailments that I just described, I really kind of came down to the fact that all of these ailments can either be caused by or exacerbated by toxins. And that was kind of a shock to me. So I began to look at toxins as a field of study for me and discovered that they're in everything from our food, our water, our air, our personal care products, etc. And we're literally being bombarded by about 250 pounds of chemicals on a daily basis. So when the body can't deal with that amount, when it's taking in more than it can eliminate, then we start seeing red flags in our immune system. We start getting headaches and all kinds of different things pop up in our bodies as like warning signs, like, hey, I'm getting to the top of my silo, I like to call it, in our bodies where we just can't handle anymore. Our livers can't detox from this stuff. And that's usually an open door to where disease kicks in. So I'm hoping that my book and this podcast and the other talks that I've been giving will really start to inform people about all of these toxins, where they're located, how they affect the body, and how we can really eliminate them from our environment as much as possible so that people can make more informed and empowered decisions in their lives.
That's great. Well, I know your website, livinginthechemicalage.com, if people want to check it out. But let's say that you just meet me for the first time. I have some symptoms or whatever. What would be the triggers, or what would be the telltale signs that you'd say, wow, you might be under the influence of these toxins or these chemicals in my environment?
Well, people are so different, and everyone has a different ability to detox from these things naturally. And everyone's level of toxicity is different as well. So people will present with all different kinds of symptoms. Like I mentioned, headache and brain fog, and there could be a whole host of other things, skin eruptions or obesity. There's so many different ways that people present with an overload of toxicity in their lives.
Well, I know a lot of people just think, wow, it's part of being of aging, maybe that
Mm.
things are happening to them. But what can they start to do today? I mean, what will they learn when they research you and figure out, hey, there might be something here. This Dr. Newman's got something here. I need to listen to it and start to apply it. What are some of the quick wins that people can have in their environment?
Well, one thing I want to point out is that chronic disease doesn't just happen overnight. Um, it really is a long period of time that things are building up in the body before we notice any telltale signs of chronic illness. And so there are so many things that we can do to reduce the amount of toxicity in our lives. My book goes through numerous things, all from the food angle, reducing our GMO intake, our pesticide intake, animal products that have antibiotics in them, and so forth. So just being aware of where those toxins are located and making healthier choices, like in the instance I just gave with meat. If you are consuming animal products that have been where the animal has been treated with antibiotics, which is very, very standard practice nowadays in these factory farms. If they are being given any food that had been genetically modified or that have had any pesticides, you are, because you're at the end of the food chain, at the top of the food chain, you're getting all of those toxins that that animal was subjected to. So I think just kind of being more aware of where these things might be entering into your environment, and then taking really proactive and preventative measures to avoid that as much as possible.
Mhm.
So having grass-fed organic meat, for instance.
So that's what I was going to ask was when they go into the grocery store and they're looking for these types of meats, they would be labeled grass-fed, hormone-free. How would they know that they're getting the right type of meats?
Yeah, well, organic technically means that the animal wasn't subjected to any food that had been given any pesticides. Um, and so that's important. It should also be antibiotic free. The organic symbol means that as well. So um, the grass-fed issue is important because you know cows are fed grass naturally. They're not used to eating grains and things. That's not really a species-specific diet for them. So it's just a healthier way of consuming animal products is by looking for what were they fed. Is that something that they're typically fed in 100 years ago or so forth. So yeah, labels are tricky though, because we really have to be conscious consumers and really kind of be aware. A lot of times we'll see a label that has the word natural on it, and natural really doesn't mean anything. There's no oversight on our government that dictates what natural should be. And so sometimes we're lulled into this false sense of security that someone somewhere is making sure that this is the best product for me and it's totally safe and healthy and it wouldn't be on the market if it wasn't, and so forth. And that's the kind of thing that I'm trying to build awareness around, is that we really need to take responsibility for ourselves and our families and educate ourselves and what all these labels mean. Where are these toxins coming into our environment?
Mhm. Now, is there any landmines you could think of that you just tell your best friend, "Hey, don't do these certain things"? Is there anything that we can just kind of cross off the list of things that really we should be avoiding, just in general, that are super toxic? That there might be a whole long list. I mean, we're not asking for the whole
Well,
one.
and some of these take some time too. So I'd say the one thing that it really affected me. It was one of the easiest things for me to give up and understand was drinking water out of plastic water bottles. And we've all done it, um, but the plastic that water bottles are made from these days is PET, and PET plastic is an endocrine disrupting chemical. And if that water bottle ever got hot, like in a truck in transit from the manufacturer to your store, for instance, or in your car, those chemicals leach into the water. And so you're drinking water that could potentially damage your thyroid, your hormones. And so that to me is a deal breaker. I mean, I won't drink out of plastic water bottles, I won't buy them. And so I think that's one thing that's pretty easy to start doing. And what I tell people that come to me is, take your filtered, hopefully, water from your sink, and fill it up in a stainless steel or a glass water bottle and carry that around with you for the day. It's at least you're not absorbing more than you're intending.
Hmm. No, that's great. So even brands like Fiji that say they never touch the atmosphere, they just go directly from the source to the bottle. I mean,
Well,
look, is
that
there any kind of bottle that they could look at and know, hey, this one might be all right, or is there just all plastics doing this?
I would avoid all plastics for food and water consumption, food and beverage. The Fiji, it's interesting that you bring that up because I love that example. They may not have had any, touching whatever you just described, touching of other things from the source to the bottle. But what about from the bottle all the way in Fiji to wherever you live in the United States, right? I mean, was it climate controlled the entire way to your store? Um, I just think if you're going to get a bottled water, look for glass, and there's plenty of options out there.
Yeah, I was very disappointed. I was just in New York City and they had Voss that was in plastic
Uh,
because I usually buy the Voss that's in the glass, which is
mhm.
nice.
Did
Uh,
it taste different
eh, I didn't buy it. I
than
didn't
what
buy
you're? Oh, okay.
the. I didn't know that. I thought there was some plastic that was good. I just don't know which one it was, so I kind of avoid it when possible. Uh,
Well, yeah, some plastics are considered safer than others, but I've never seen a plastic water bottle that isn't a number one, which number one means that it's PET.
okay, all right, good to know. So even though people are thinking, "Hey, I'm doing this great thing for my body. I'm drinking water," they could be filling up with toxins, and that's putting a burden on their body. So
Yes.
when their body gets toxic, what happens to the body? What might show up besides the illness part of it? What might show up as a low level chronic stress environment for them?
Well, like I said, people exhibit symptoms differently depending on, who they are, their genetics, etc. So, one thing that's more of on an emotional level is anxiety. On some level, your body knows that it's dealing with more than it can handle, and that can sometimes trigger anxiety. And you don't know why you're feeling that way, but you feel that there's something wrong. And that actually happened to me when I had all kinds of issues. Like I said, about 8 years ago, one of the issues was I had high levels of mercury, and that is also toxic to the brain. And I also had mold exposure. So dealing with all of that and not knowing what was going on, I exhibited a lot of generalized anxiety, not really understanding why I felt so bad. I thought, uh-oh, well, what's wrong with me kind of thing. So.
So when somebody starts to clear out their system like this, is there anything they should watch out for? Do they have, like, in some cases when people do detoxes, they get an over detoxification? Has that ever happened to people when they start cleaning out their cupboards and their refrigerators and their water bottles and things of that nature?
Well, I think there's a distinction to make here when we talk about detox. There's the detox that you're referring to, cleaning out your cupboards and your refrigerators and kind of looking at the whole system, that your personal care products and whatnot. So part of it is decreasing the amount of toxins that you're exposed to, and that can be seen as kind of a detoxing of our environment. But then there's also the detoxing of our bodies. Once we've accumulated a lot of toxins and we want to eliminate the body burden, so to speak, of toxins that we have, I always say, there's so many different detox programs out there, and some are good and some aren't. So make sure that it's, kind of certified. Maybe it's under the care of your functional or integrative medicine doctor, or another kind of nutritional practitioner. And you don't want to be feeling worse than you started out. So, you should always be adequately hydrated. You shouldn't be restricting any nutritional balance that you have. So it's there's usually supplementation that goes along with detoxing to kind of help the body naturally and gently detox. And sometimes if you go too fast and you try to detox too much too soon, you will get some kind of unpleasant symptoms, but you can just kind of back off a little bit and that should resume normal feelings.
So we're going to detox our environment. We're going to change the kind of meats we're eating. We're going to look for those healthier meats and things of that nature. We're going to change our water bottle consumption. What other tips do you have for the listeners that say, wow, I know we're living in a chemical age, but we have to live in it. So is there anything we can do to kind of safeguard against it?
Well, awareness is the best thing. And, I want to point out one other easy tip that I think is pretty easy to start doing. If you dry clean your clothes, chances are, unless you've already heard about this PERC, P-E-R-C, it is a chemical that's used in dry cleaning. And it's quite toxic. Not necessarily, they say that it's okay on the skin, but the fumes from it are what are troublesome. And so what I recommend to people who haven't found an organic or green kind of dry cleaners in their area, what they can do is take off that plastic bag when you get it home and leave it outside to hang and to air out. So that off-gassing will happen outside of your home as opposed to inside your closet. That should help quite a bit with the vapors of PERC. So that's an easy one to implement as well.
Wow, that's great. So in your research, what have you found to be the most enlightening source for you that says, hey, wow, that was my go-to place to get information? I know you've summarized it into your book and your website, but what helped you along the way? What inspirations did you find?
Well, little bits here and there. And that was another reason why I was so compelled to write this book, is because we'll hear about a news source saying, for instance, there's the glyphosate is deemed a probable carcinogen by the World Health Organization, or you might hear about the Flint crisis with their lead in their water, or you hear all these kind of disparate sources of information and stories. And then once in a while, we'll see an article about a particular like BPA and plastic, or we'll see these things. But what people don't realize is that we're all we're affected by all of it. All of us are, and a lot of these chemicals didn't exist 100 years ago, and now we have 85,000 chemicals in our environment, and only a few hundred of those have ever been tested for safety. So when I started seeing all of this, I really just tried to find as many research studies as possible. There are a couple of sources out there who are really inspirational, and they have great uh, data, and it's very palatable. One is Dr. Axe, AXE. He always has really good uh, material on this kind of topic, as well as others. Dr. Hyman's website also has some great material as well. But I really feel that on a daily basis, I was just absorbing from all kinds of websites and newsletters, and looking into actual statistics to build up my knowledge.
So if you had a crystal ball and you could kind of predict the future based on what you know, what kind of changes would you see happening in our world that would help us to live in a more safe environment?
I think people are becoming more and more aware of these problems. And every time I hear about, for instance, the Queen of England just announced that she's banning disposable plastic. I think it's by next year. No more straws and utensils and things like that in restaurants. Or the other day I was watching a documentary, and it was this gentleman in Norway who is starting to pick up all the trash along the coastlines, and he found 30 tons of it last year that he's picking up and taking out from the Arctic waters. When I hear about people doing things that are monumental like this, and really starting to realize what an impact it's having, not only on our environment but on our health, I'm encouraged. I think as a species, we're generally slow to adopt things. So it may take a while before the masses start to realize that, this stuff isn't good for us, and maybe I'll look at other things. But I'm encouraged by the trends that I'm seeing with the people demanding more organic food, for instance, and people are starting to become more aware of it. I'm hopeful.
Well, you've shared a great deal with us today already, but where can someone get more information about what all your research, and maybe some tips and tricks to be clean in this chemical age?
Yes, well, I give a lot of tips and tricks and resources in my book. My book is sold on Amazon, and it's called Living in the Chemical Age. You can also go to my website, which is livinginthechemical.age.com. I'm also on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook if you want to find me there.
That's great. Well, given what you've already shared, is there anything else you want to leave our listeners with so they can really rush to their computer and buy that book from Amazon, or go check out your webpage?
Well, I just want to encourage people to take things day by day. You don't have to be perfect. I think in our society, we're so consumed with trying to do the best we can in every angle of our life. And because these chemicals are so prevalent in everything that we touch, it's important to not feel overwhelmed by it, and just take baby steps, and just do one thing at a time and feel good about it, and then go on to the next thing. Like if you want to get your water tested for chemicals, for instance, maybe this month, and the next month, maybe you go through your personal care products and start purging some of the more toxic brands that you're buying, things like that. But I think it's important to just remind people that they don't have to be perfect, but every little bit helps.
That's great. Well, I'm so glad I don't have to stop using dry cleaners, but I'm going to start taking the plastic off because I'm probably going to be the one ironing them. Certain things my wife won't do. So, but I think that there are advantages to living this healthy lifestyle that you're promoting, and and of course, people can go on your website, start following you on Twitter, and start finding where you're at, what you're speaking about. I think this is a very timely message, and BrainTap Nation knows that we talk about trauma, toxins, and thoughts, and so we have to if we can stop the toxins from coming into our brain and body, we're going to actually be well ahead of the game. So I want to thank you again. Again, that's Janet Newman, who's got livinginthechemicalage.com. You can go check it out. You can go check out her book by the same name. I've read parts of it so far, and I'm enjoying the read, and I think that it's very timely. I think that everyone should share that with their family, with their friends. Let's get informed, and of course, our dollars speak loudly as far as what they produce and what they do. So if we can stop buying all this plastic and all these chemicals, they're going to find a new, healthier way. Like you said, people demanding more healthy foods and things of that nature. So again, thanks for being on the show. We look forward to helping get the message out there. I think it's a very good cause, and we want to be a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Porter. It's a pleasure.
This show has been produced by Market Domination, LLC. To discover how you can have your own show completely done for you and turn it into a real published book and become the authority in your marketplace, go to www.marketdominationllc.com/podcast offer.